Striker Texas MLS fans, we are back for the Striker Texas MLS podcast. No games this past weekend. Hope you enjoyed whatever you got into for Memorial Day last weekend, whatever you did on this gameless weekend. Maybe you're a real sicko and you caught Vancouver Whitecaps Real Salt Lake. That's what our friend Phil West was up to, I'm sure. But some international action on tap. We'll get into a little bit of international break with the U.S. national team coming to the Lone Star State to play Granada in Austin at Q2 Stadium. And we'll also talk a little bit about some of the Texas friends, some of our other players in action in the international break. But we're going to spend most of the day looking back on the not quite mid-season point and giving some of our awards. I'm joined by Chris Bils, our Austin FC correspondent on the Striker Texas. Yo, Chris, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I actually spent some time up your way this weekend, so that was fun. Caught up with some family. Caught up with some Jon Arnold.
Up in Frisco?
So good time.
Frisco?
No, I didn't make it all the way up to Frisco, no.
I did make it to Denton this weekend.
I heard rumors that it's now the DFF Metroplex. Is that have you
Dallas, Fort Frisco? You're just going to cut Fort Worth off? One of the largest. Don't get me started. Fort Worth's huge. And Victor Araiza is in Houston.
Hello.
You going to talk some more slander or what?
No, just happy to be on here, even if it's International Week. Plenty of guys on international break. Some people are into international games.
I'm one of them. You've been keeping up with everybody in Texas, the Texas MLS-based guys, how they're faring on the international break. People can check out that on the Striker Texas. It's more than just like hey, Carrasquilla is playing for Panama. You're going a little more in depth, so people can check that out on the Striker Texas. All sorts of coverage as well on what some of the guys did on their off time. Chris, you had a piece on Alex Ring, I believe sadly losing his grandfather, going back to Finland, getting some family time, which I know is obviously so important. So some stories behind the scenes, some kind of deeper looks at what your players have done off the field. But we're going to talk today about what they've done on the field. We're going to argue because we're going to give out our not quite mid-season Striker Texas MLS awards. Now, I wish there was a drop right here in music, but maybe we can add that in post. Let's start at the top of the list. We're going to run through a lot of things. Some are kind of goofy. Some are just, straightforward. And this one's pretty straightforward. But, producer Maya says she will add a drop in post. I'm excited to hear that. Some are goofy. Some are straightforward. This one's pretty straightforward. Who's the MVP? Which Texas MLS player is the MVP? And look, I mean, some of these guys have been so good. They could be the league MVP right now, Chris. At least one of your guys I'm thinking of is in the conversation.
Well, at least two of your guys I'm thinking is in the conversation over the Dallas way. But I'm gonna be a bit of a homer on this and go with Sebastian Driussi. I just think 8 goals, 4 assists, third most in MLS as far as goals goes. But he hasn't scored from open play since April 30th. Now you might say like that's a sort of a downtrend that might continue. But I'll expect him to bounce back off of that, and also has shown just how valuable he is, because that drop in production from him has coincided with Austin's drop in form. And I think when you talk about the most valuable player, as far as you take one guy out of any of these teams, and Austin, I think for Austin, maybe Austin fans don't want to hear this, but I think it would look completely different. I think that Austin would be a much worse team if you take Sebastian Driussi out of the mix. He's just involved in every aspect of what they're trying to do, whether it's pressing, whether it's in build-up, whether it's in attack, and he's just a fun player to watch overall.
Driussi locked up that Player of the Month award from Major League Soccer, and he's like, all right, I'm the Player of the Month for April. I'm not producing anymore.
Time to take a vacation.
No more goals from open play. I accomplished what I wanted, baby. Of course, here in Dallas, we have the reigning Player of the Month in MLS, Paul Arriola. He scored 6 goals in 5 games in May. But I think that he and Jesus Ferreira, who was leading MLS in goals for a while there, and is still right up toward the top of the heap, I think they hurt each other's case, because you're talking about an award where, people want to say different things about how you decide what an MVP is or not. But I think that when you look at the base, if Ferreira wasn't in the team, in theory, they'd be getting goal production from Arriola and vice versa. Arriola scoring a lot more than we expected him to. He wasn't really a goal-focused winger for most of his MLS career. But he's been such a pleasant surprise for Dallas. Maybe we'll get into him in a later category. I would argue that Ferreira is more of the most valuable player. We've seen what FC Dallas looks like when they have a forward who can't score goals. We've seen what they look like when they have a forward who can score goals. And Jesus Ferreira does even more than Ricardo Pepi did, kind of dropping deeper, still showing some of those playmaking instincts that he deployed last year as the team's top playmaker. So I think Ferreira is FC Dallas's candidate. I'm actually still voting Driussi here just because I think he's maybe more critical to kind of the day-to-day operation, even though Jesus Ferreira is extremely important. Victor, you're welcome to toss a Dynamo player in here or settle a tie here.
Yeah,
wow, that was a hardier laugh than I expected. I knew you weren't going to go that direction, but
Steve Clark. I think overall, I think that's the way I try to define an MVP is if you take that player off the team, how far does the team fall, right? And I think from that category, it is Driussi, but I think there's a case right up there to be had. I'm going to disagree with you a little, but I think it is Arriola because he's changed the complexion of that FC Dallas team. We saw even with Ferreira, and obviously Ferreira's taken a step over the offseason and the international breaks. But I do think just the attitude, leadership, what Arriola has brought, and for him, it's been a good change as well because you can see he's got a newfound energy up there in FC Dallas. So I think I'm between those two. Maybe I give the edge to Driussi, but I don't think Arriola's far behind.
We're giving Sebastian Driussi, our striker Texas, not quite midseason MVP. Let's move on to biggest surprise, and I'm going to kick us off. I think it's all three of these teams. I mean, maybe that's like a cop-out, but I just think it's the teams. I think they were so rough last year. Last year was quite difficult for the striker Texas to write fun stories, positive stories, keep the mood light. Even on this podcast where we joke around a fair bit, week after week, it was just like, well, and I think there was inspiration or hope. But, Victor, when we were looking at kind of the season preview, I think we said, well, maybe one of these teams, maybe two could make the playoffs, but they're going to be struggling, battling on that line. That very well still could be the case. But it looks, at time of recording, like FC Dallas and Austin, if they don't make the playoffs, they've collapsed. And the Dynamo are right there too, and getting Hector Herrera soon.
Yeah, and I think maybe the biggest surprise is the FC Dallas and Houston Dynamo a co-award, right, for the front offices, right, ponying up the money, going out and getting Velasco and Arriola up in Dallas, getting down here Sebastian Ferreira, putting up the money for Hector Herrera. That maybe is the biggest surprise of all because that's what made these teams more competitive. It's something different than we've seen in recent years, something fans have been asking for, and that is a surprise. I don't think any of us expected it. I think we expected them to improve, to make changes, but I don't think we expected them to just kind of open up the wallet and just bring some big name players.
Yeah. Chris, are you going to go with a player or an organization, cheat like I did and just say everyone? Who's your biggest surprise this year?
I'll go a little bit more specific. For me, it's Jesus Ferreira. And I think it's because of all those reasons that Victor was saying about ponying up the money. But this is a guy in a move that we maybe raised our eyebrows at and said, maybe how serious is FC Dallas if they're just going to give the money to a guy that's already on the roster? And I think that it's paying off, right? And it could pay off for him personally in making a World Cup team. It looks like it probably will. And that's huge for him individually. I don't think anybody thought of him as being, a leading goal scorer to this point in the MLS season. He's also got 4 assists. And if he was doing this as a foreign player, think of, like an Argentine or, somebody coming from outside the league, I think it would be getting even more buzz than it is. As it is, he is a DP signing and he's doing all the things that you would expect of a DP. And he's also taken the pressure, I think, off of Alan Velasco to be everything right away. And I think that all those things combined has been, to me, the biggest pleasant surprise in Texas to this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely weren't expecting when Nico Estevez came in and said he's going to be our starting number 9 and FC Dallas announced the new contract. You weren't expecting him to be the U.S. national team's number 9. You weren't expecting him to be scoring as many goals as he's scoring. And, there are even a few slow weeks when on this show I said, he's got to show it. He's got the contract now. He's got the expectations now. He's got to put, the goals in. He's got to put some scoring plays together. He's certainly done that and a little more.
Has he looked up at the press box when he scores any of those goals? Jon Arnold, this is for you.
He doesn't love the press, but we get on pretty well. I think I don't think I'm one of his haters or doubters, if that's the category you're looking for. Let's talk about haters and doubters. I'm going to Victor Araiza for this one. Who's the most disappointing so far?
Most disappointing so far? That's might be a tough one here.
All right, not prepared. Chris Bils.
No, not prepared.
I'll go with Cecilia Dominguez, and I know that there's multiple things going into that. I think also it's a disappointment for multiple angles with the front office and Claudio Reyna sort of signing him to begin with the off the field stuff, the domestic dispute that's left him off the field this year. But you just think about the expectations for this guy. He was supposed to be sort of the face of the franchise when he came in. There was no Sebastian Driussi at that point. We knew that they would probably bring somebody in bigger in the summer. But focus on the field. His absence has been really noticeable. Not having that dynamic winger, and he was a big part of that 10-goal explosion at the beginning of the season, and now he's not there. It's hard to see him at this point ever living up to Austin FC fans' expectations.
Yeah. Is it crazy for me to say? I think Cecilio, that he's in a category of his own.
Sure.
Is it crazy for me to say, and I know he's going through personal stuff. I know some other things are happening. Is it crazy to say Alex Ring? I think he had such a great first season. He was such a critical player for Austin FC. And this year, I haven't really seen him do the same things that he needed to do. He gave Austin a little extra tactical flexibility that I don't think they have this year because he seems more limited. He doesn't seem to be as sure in his role. I think as captain, still, sure, a great leader, but I would like to see him come back refreshed from this international break because to me, maybe unfairly, he set the expectations, set the bar very high last year, and I don't think he's met that bar. To me, he's one of the bigger disappointments.
Yeah, is that your answer? Or
if you as the Austin guy let it pass, I'm gonna go with that.
I'll let it. Well, I would push back a little bit on that just to say. And it's something that I want to write about here during the international break. I already wrote about sort of his personal struggles with the passing of his grandfather, not being around, having to wait those 2 months to go back for the funeral. I think all those things have sort of weighed on him. But the other thing that's weighed on him is having to play almost two positions at once, right? He's playing that box-to-box role, but some games he's deeper with Danny Ferreira. Some games he's further up with Sebastian Driussi, trying to produce chances. And it's also that what I just talked about with Cecilio Dominguez. There's not really, Maxi Urruti's up there. He scored a few goals. Diego Fagundes has produced well, but that other wing spot still a question mark. And I think that the amount of plays that Alex Ring sort of orchestrates and does well on, and then he's the one there to finish off the play, and it doesn't go well. I think that those are the plays that fans and maybe somebody that's a casual observer remembers more than others. And I think that he's had more good moments than bad when you talk about the season. Now, is that DP level? He would probably himself admit that it's not. And so to that point, I think it's been disappointing for him. But I also think that maybe it's a little bit unfair given the role that he's in, that we're expecting him to score goals and pop as an offensive weapon when he's still a box-to-box guy. He's sort of helping everybody else get along on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it's tough when we're doing these awards because you are always measuring it against expectations, right? And I think, like I said, to me, Ring didn't meet his expectations. Let's go on a positive tip now and talk about most improved.
Hey, whoa! I'm ready.
I went to you. Didn't have an answer. You're my most disappointing of the podcast. I move on. That's how it works. All right, let's hear it.
No, look, because when you told me disappointing, I think the first thing I thought about was just how much points they left on the table at home, right? That Houston Dynamo could be up in around the first places if you go just to play performances. Maybe the quick one that comes to mind is Memo Rodriguez, just because he only has one assist this year. We expected him to get a jump here, but I don't know how much it is his fault. Getting so much expectations, right? Maybe the expectations set a little too high by the organization. I'm gonna go with Corey Baird, right? I think for 600 minutes, not to have a goal, he did score in the Open Cup, but I think to have one goal in over 20 games for the club, I think he's the guy that's got to step it up. And there's a reason why Beto Avila has taken the spot centrally.
Well, let's talk on the positive tip like I was wanting to do a second ago and go to most improved. I think keep it simple here. For me, it's Ferreira. He's in a different position. Yeah, he's doing a different thing. But even though he was good last year, one of the few bright spots of that FC Dallas team, I think he's just been on another level this year. He clearly worked this offseason. He clearly feels comfortable in the role that Nico Estevez and his coaching staff are asking him to play. To me, next box, it's Jesus Ferreira. Any other candidates? Maybe one in Austin or Houston?
I went with Julio Cascante. I think the Austin
that's a good one.
Especially the center backs have been so much better. And in a lot of games last year he was sort of the weak link, and this year he leads the team in minutes. He's yet to be subbed out of a game for Austin this year, and I think he pairs well with Ruben Gabrielson. He's looking more comfortable in every aspect. He can sort of spur attacks with his passing going forward, but he's also got caught in a few transition moments and just looked much better and much more well equipped. I think Carlos Vela dribbled away from him, which maybe was a slight on Carlos Vela not knowing who he was going up against. But I also think it showed that like Julio Cascante was confident and able to kind of put out that fire, and he's done that several times this year.
If you've heard me talk on this podcast before, I mean, Coco Carrasquilla, right? I think he's taken a level up this year. There's a reason why he became a permanent purchase. He says he can get even better. That's up on StrikerTexas.com, and then he should get even better, right? With Hector Herrera coming in.
Yeah, it should take some of the load off his shoulders for sure. Let's talk a little bit about Coach of the Year. I guess we only have 3 candidates. For me, you can call me a homer on this one as well, but for me, it's Nico Estevez. I mean, FC Dallas is flying. They're winning games on the road. There have been a few games that haven't gone totally right tactically, but in a couple of those games, the team has then adapted out of whatever they were trying to do that wasn't working and come away with all 3 points. Victor, we remember that game against the Houston Dynamo where FC Dallas had the late charge. There have been other halftime adjustments that have just come off phenomenally well. And this team has a confidence about it. It understands its role in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. And you see individuals who specifically were brought in partly because of their relationship with Nico Estevez. I'm thinking of Paul Arriola. He's in maybe the form of his life right now ahead of the World Cup. And it's no small thing. Thanks in no small part to Estevez and his coaching staff, Jesus Ferreira, the sort of, I don't know if it's brilliance, but the confidence to put him back as the starting 9, where he played in the academy for many years and where he started his professional career. I just think you have guys who are really enjoying their football right now, really enjoying their jobs. And I don't know what else you could really ask from Estevez right now. He's got FC Dallas in trophy contention.
I agree with everything you say. I mean, I think it's all the reasons you just mentioned, and to me, he's the only right answer at the moment for this award.
Yeah, I do think that maybe Josh Wolf could get there by the end of the season. He's been good, but I mean, Nico Estevez is far and above the answer to this question. And I think the question we had, it's almost similar to I don't know, the Jesus Ferreira conversation is like we kind of raised our eyebrows. What's the difference here between him and Lucho Gonzalez? Well, we're seeing it, right?
Yeah, I just think that when that experience that he had that Luchi Gonzalez never had, I think we just sort of said, oh, well, they're the same profile. It's a youth guy who's never been a head coach before. But the years that he spent under Greg Berhalter as an assistant, both in MLS and with the national team, I think prepared him in a way that we weren't expecting. And I also think Estevez, look, it's his first season. He could crash and burn this year, but I think he is an extremely intelligent guy who sees the game better than like us, but like than a lot of other people.
No, but also, recognizes
that's the standard.
When he has to make in-game adjustments, and that's some things coaches.
Certainly not afraid to say he's wrong, to take outside feedback. Even after a game, when I say, I thought that you guys struggled in up to the 30th minute, he'll sometimes say like, oh, I didn't quite see it like that, and this is why. And that ability to take criticism, to listen to other feedback, even if he's not agreeing with it, I think is a positive attribute. Josh Wolf, I think, if we had a most improved coach, he's taken a big step forward for me. Obviously the team has gotten better, but even some of the ways that he's managed games, I think managed his sub patterns, I think have shown improvement. The extension might be a little early for me, but I think he's done really well in year 2.
Got a good agent, man.
Hey, we could all use it. Let's talk defensive MVP. I'm gonna start with you, Chris. Defensive MVP. Is it going to Cascante or?
No, I'm looking more at FC Dallas. I mean, they're leading the West in goals allowed right now, and I was going to kind of defer to you and maybe cop out a little bit, but I had Marco Farfan with a question mark just because
he's been great. He's been
really good. I know he's more of an attacking piece, really, sometimes, but
sort of, yeah.
But
it's funny because he's this left back who they brought in kind of to get younger because Hollingshead, was open to a move. I think they wanted to have a more defensive player. And you say, well, he's almost an attacking piece because he's been much better than expected in joining the attack, in getting into that final third, in linking with whoever the winger is up there. So he's been certainly a pleasant surprise for FCD.
Yeah, and like the other reason I wanted to bring him up was because Hollingshead is off to a flying start as well out of LAFC, and I think that like that's the kind of trade that worked out well for both teams. But if it hadn't worked out for FCD, I think you'd be looking at what Hollingshead is doing and a little bit longingly, and you don't have to do that right now. So I think that's important for what FC did during the offseason.
Yeah, for me, this one's an easy answer, and I'm going to sound like a homer, but it's Steve Clark. No doubt,
oh, nice.
without him on the Houston Dynamo, they would have lost more games. He's kept the team in games in position to win, plenty of important saves, and obviously a huge upgrade compared to what they've had in recent years. Bona fide number one.
I'm going to go with someone who's also my answer for our next category, which is most underappreciated player, and that is Matt Hedges. He's just been so quietly consistent for so long that you forget that he's there. But last year he was rough and he wasn't right. His hip was really bothering him. He missed a couple of months, and I think he was really fighting through pain, fighting through a lot of struggles with his body last year. This year he was able to get right. He's also enjoying working with Miguel, the FC Dallas performance coach, and some of the staff there. They're making sure that he's getting the right rest that he needs, but also the right, when he needs to go, he goes. I think that he's been the biggest cornerstone. And you look at FC Dallas's defense, they're so much better than last season. You say, what's the difference? Martin Pies over Jimmy Maurer in most of the games. But Jimmy's a fantastic goalkeeper. I think he's an MLS number one. So, that's not that big of an improvement, even though Martin has been very, very good and probably has some nicer stats than a lot of the other goalkeepers. Farfan is the other kind of change. Farfan for Hollingshead. You say, well, Hollingshead was okay defensively. Why is FC Dallas still doing so much better defensively? The right back is a bit of a rotating door as they kind of try and find someone between Imatumasi and Nanu who's going to be that consistent player. I think it's Hedges. I think these guys slot in with Hedges healthy, not vocally necessarily calling things out, being the captain, but just his presence and what he does, getting into the right place, starting attacks with his passing. I think he's the defensive MVP and the most underappreciated player. What about in Houston, Victor? Who needs to get more ink that isn't?
I think I just said it. Steve Clark's probably up there because he
turns out we don't watch much defense.
Carrasquilla has the hair, right? The other guys, some beautiful goals this year, but I think, and especially with the rotating goalkeepers in Houston over the last couple of years, I think it's kind of hard to point at a guy that finally has the number one spot for the first time in a long time, right? And I think again, huge upgrade at the position. He's probably one to look at.
Chris, who's your most underappreciated player so far?
Yeah, I was a little bit on the fence when I was writing this down, but the fact that we haven't brought up his name yet at all in this show, I think shows that he deserves it, and that's Diego Fagundes. I mean,
I was waiting for you to say. I was going to see if you were going to say that.
Yeah, he's right up there. He leads the league in assists. And whenever Sebastian Driussi has had some rough moments and has been focused more on, I mean, think about the LA Galaxy game when he put them in the lead. He's shown up with some really nice goals, and it's weird to say because he's so appreciated in the Austin community and with the Austin supporters. But I think nationally, he doesn't get enough love, I think. And even within our little bubble, clearly with, the names that we brought up so far in this podcast. And there's been a lot of good things in Texas, so it's maybe not a surprise. But I got to give Diego Fagundes some love 20 minutes into this thing.
I love it. Maxi Rudy also haven't said his name yet on this podcast. Maybe he'll come up in the next category, which is best goal. Best goal. Anybody got one? I have one, but
it's Ferreira. It's that.
Oh yeah,
it's that ball.
That one was crazy, man. That
best
one was
goal
crazy.
At PNC Stadium.
But then it was all for nothing.
Well, at least it was worth the ticket. If you weren't in your seat at the right time, you missed it, man.
That's true. Unbelievable goal against Austin FC. Chris, any counter?
Yeah, I mean, that one jumps to mind, but I will go with the Maxi Ruti stunner in San Jose just because it sort of announced his arrival as a striker and a true number 9 for Austin FC. And getting to see that bow and arrow celebration in person for the first time was it was a little special. And like my jaw was on the floor because just the way that ball came over the top, it was just like, what did he just do?
That was a pretty sweet strike. Yeah.
Rounding out both the announcing their arrival category and the bow and arrow celebration category. Bow and arrow celebration, Brandon Cervenia. Remember that long goal off the set piece move that Cervenia had? I can't even remember who they were playing, but it was awesome. And
I thought you'd go with there you go.
Alan Velasco's debut goal against Real Salt Lake. I mean, Maradona maybe a little strong, although he does have the tattoo on his back, inviting the comparison. look, like he's only scored, I believe, once since on a free kick, another stunning goal. So he definitely has goals in him. He still, I think, needs a little bit of time to adapt and kind of live up to the price tag. But I think early indications are positive that he can deal with it. Let's go to best hair. Victor, earlier you said Coco. Is that who you're sticking with?
That's it. That's who I'm sticking with.
I'm going to go here with Nkosi Tafari. He mixes it up. The FC Dallas center back. He's always doing something different, inventive colors. His style has to be unbeatable. If you extend the category, in the pregame photos with the, Twitter and Instagram pictures, the man is dressed to impress. And impress he does. So I'm going to go with Nkosi here. Bils, best hair?
Yeah, that's the bit Dennis Rodman vibes. And I guess, like, Diego Fagundez fits into that category as well. He had the green hair. Just like, but I got to go with a couple young guys, and I'm having trouble picking between them because the facial hair is coming into it for me. And Beto Avila jumping into the to the Houston Dynamo mix with his kind of the blonde look he's usually got a mustache going. And then Denny Ferreira has really brought it this year, I think, bringing the facial hair into the mix. He's playing more grown and he looks more grown. So it's hard for me to pick between those two. As you guys know that I love both of them.
Houston needs a beard. I mean, without James Harden for the last several years, you need someone to take that mantle. I know some of the baseball guys have tried to, Tim Parker, but I mean, you need someone who is just the center of gravity figure with the beard. I mean,
Ferreira's coming to town. He's got kind of a beard.
Come on now. You're comparing Ance's beard with Harden's beard? Man, no wonder you think Owen Wolff doesn't look like Josh Wolf. That's a crazy take right there. Let's close out our award.
Harden up in the owner's suite somewhere.
That's true. I forget he is involved. He's still involved.
Yeah, that would be something if Owen Wolff came in with a beard one day.
He's been working on it. All right, let's close it out. Let's close it out.
I mean, Josh Wolf already said that he was jealous of Owen Wolff's hair, when he was a baby. But now he can just take over the locker room. Did you hear that? Did you hear that quote, John?
No.
You gotta go look at it. He was talking about Owen Wolff's back hair when he was a baby because we asked him about the Teen Wolf nickname.
Oh, right.
So it was, I gave Owen a chance to rebuttal, but he didn't take it.
Probably a good call from him for various reasons. Let's close out with most likely to succeed. That'd be which Texas team do we think is going to finish atop the standings? Carlos is in the comments asking if Hector Ferreira could be eligible for MVP if he only plays for half the season. Victor, is Houston the most likely to succeed when Ache arrives? Is one of the other Texas teams going to finish the season ahead of them? Who tops the heap in Texas? We could say who wins Copa Tejas as well, but who is the most likely Texas team to succeed by the end of the year?
Look, I'm a little tempted to go with one of either FC Dallas or Austin because they have the head start. But I do think, I think if Ferreira comes in with his best form, then Houston obviously has an opportunity here to rise up the standings easily. And if he comes in his best form,
don't be wishy-washy.
No.
Who is it going to be?
I'll go Houston. I'm gonna roll the dice. I'm gonna say that Ferreira arrives. If he brings that Champions League
Victor, ever the optimist. That's what you're known for on this podcast.
Yeah, Victor Optimism Araiza over here. Unbelievable. Chris, who's your most likely to succeed?
I got to go with FC Dallas. I just think that what they're doing right now is the most sustainable. Unless the Austin FC comes in and makes some summer signings, which I think it's not that they need to do it, but I think that it would show, a big commitment to taking this year as far as it can go. And right now, I think FC Dallas, without making any moves, is in position to perhaps win the West. I think that they're, from what I've seen so far, more consistent than even LAFC's been. We'll see if they can keep that going. If they can, some home playoff games at Toyota Stadium, I think would be a welcome sight, and I think that's what we'd all love to see.
I think it's Dallas as well. I think they nip Austin. I think Houston will make a surge. It's already, I think, a 7-point gap between the Texas teams with Houston kind of down there. You can make that up pretty easily, especially with a couple games remaining between the other Texas teams. And obviously the goal is not necessarily to be the best team in Texas in the standings, even if we at the Striker Texas will be paying attention to that.
What about Copa Tejas?
Well, hold on. Let me finish my most likely to succeed. I'm going to go FC Dallas. I'm going to go FC Dallas. I think that it's a reasonable target to say, let's get a home playoff game this year. It's something they could push for, and I think it's something they could get. And what a step forward that would be from even previous seasons where you're saying if they make the playoffs, it's a quote unquote success. I think it's special what Nico Estevez is doing. Austin, I think that Cecilio situation, not that it's a distraction in the locker room, but you have a DP who's not playing right now, who you're going to try and ship out this summer for parts. I mean,
possibly.
You're not going to get full value.
He was out with the fans. Maybe we should mention this. He was
right. He was signing autographs.
He was signing autographs at the supporters meet and greet. It sounded like I talked to a few folks that were there. It sounded like nothing. There was nothing really. Right. No tempers flaring.
No one yelled in his face or something.
Although I heard that somebody got in Rodney Redis's face, so that was an interesting little tidbit.
All right.
from the day. But no, I think that people mostly avoided the Cecilio table just because there were long lines. It was like 45 minutes to get an autograph, and it sounded like most people were after Sebastian Driussi and not Cecilio Dominguez. So I think that's kind of how that went.
Oh, they're going for the MVP candidate instead of the guy who isn't playing and the fans don't want on the field right now. I don't know. It doesn't seem right to me. Let's close out very quickly. Victor, give us a thumbnail sketch of what people can find when they go to the Striker Texas and check out how those Texas guys are doing on the international break. Who are the standouts?
Yeah, obviously, well, we're gonna outline Hector Herrera, right? Because he played with Mexico, and that's gonna be all of our Striker Texas coverage from now on. Now, obviously, the guys with the U.S. national team, there's some of the USL guys, by the way, we're including in that list, having some opportunity with their national team. So you can find that on the website.
Check it out on the Striker Texas. Check out the Striker Texas as well for more coverage of all three of these MLS teams: FC Dallas, Houston Dynamo, Austin FC. We got it all covered over on the Striker Texas. Plus Theo Lloyd Hughes keeping us ticking along with the Houston Dash coverage, as they are not on the international break. They're actually playing games. So some stuff there that I was able to check out that I don't typically, unfortunately, have time. Yeah. Oh, man, they're rolling. They're absolutely rolling. It's good stuff over there, and we're looking forward to digging into more of that. Maybe we can chat with Theo again here in the next couple of weeks as international women's play takes some focus. Some Texas players as well involved with the Mexico national team, the U.S. national team, all sorts of stuff. We got it over for you on the Striker Texas. We'd love to have your subscription. It helps support what we do here. It helps support what we do on the site, and we hope you check it out and enjoy. Next week, we'll be talking games, I think, although FC Dallas doesn't have a game. Y'all have games next week?
Austin FC plays Pachuca. But I'll be talking to you boys from Ohio. So John, maybe we'll have to. Are you coming down for US
for the national team? I'm hoping to. I haven't solidified my plans yet, and I need to speak with a few PR professionals before I figure out what's going on. Victor, you said the Dynamo are playing?
Yeah, Atletico San Luis coming to town over the weekend.
Oh, so it's all friendlies. It's all Mexico friendlies. FC Dallas is just chilling, man. No friendly here.
That's Dallas a big one. That's the Victor Araiza match right there.
That's the Araiza Cup. Copa Araiza.
Oh, man.
That's better. Copa Araiza. You can just smash it together. Yeah. Copa Araiza. We'll look forward to your fully unbiased match report.
There you go.
Are you writing match reports? What are you doing for that?
Yeah. I'm going to go down obviously check out the game. And I'm still trying to see how. Obviously, we have the regular coverage we have on international friendlies, and I may even swing over to San Antonio for that game on Tuesday. They're San Luis playing San Antonio. So.
Yeah, but something tells me you're going to be in the stands. Dale, San Luis.
You're going to be absolutely. I'm going to be the one-man chapter.
I bet there'll be more than one in there. All right, well, fantastic. We'll look forward to that on the site. Hope you check out the site, enjoy what you find. There's a 30-day trial subscription, so you can check it out. Try before you buy, but we think you'll stick around and enjoy. We'll talk to you guys next week on the Striker Texas MLS podcast. Make sure you get in the comments. Tell us your MVP of the season, your best hair, your best goal, and how wrong we all are about which team is most likely to succeed. Stump for your boys in the comments. Talk to you guys next week on the Striker Texas MLS podcast. Take care.